Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford as usual, and it's actually sunny today. Callum, the cameraman's got his shorts on. I haven't, but it's still nice weather. And as you'd expect this morning, most of the news centering around Manchester United is dominated by Jadon Sancho. Reports that United have actually agreed a fee with Dortmund for Jadon Sancho. This transfer story has been rumbling on for about a year, I'd say, but certainly the last few weeks and months it's began to get sort of hotted up, just like the weather. We saw some pictures yesterday as well. Marcus Rashford posting pictures with Jadon Sancho on his social media in England shirts, and Jadon Sancho doing the same, which sort of sent social media into a frenzy. But the reports in the Independent that United have agreed a fee with Dortmund, and it's going to be an initial payment of £60 million, which from the start of this transfer, it was always sort of rumoured that United wanted to pay it in instalments. That's how United often like to try and make transfers happen. They tried to do it with Harry Maguire, tried to do it with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Not always successful. A lot of the time, clubs will sort of buckle down and say, no, we want a full upfront fee. But there are reports that Dortmund are willing to listen to instalments as long as the initial fee is around 60 million, and then obviously you have other deals that come in, other payments that come in. It was similar to the fee that we paid Monaco for Anthony Martial. If you remember, when we first signed him, there were sort of deals or caveats put into that place where the initial fee was 36 million, but it rose to 50 million if he was top scorer, if he won the Ballon d'Or, I think, was one of the deals put in there. And you never know, it might actually happen, because you'll remember that headline, what a waste of money, 50 million down the drain. Certainly not anymore. No one's saying that anymore anyway. Also, another story doing the rounds is Sancho Jimenez, if I get that right, from Wolves going to Manchester United. Now, I saw this last night. This was doing the rounds yesterday, and when I looked at it, I thought, really, is this going to happen? United have been rumoured and linked with him before, but there was never anything concrete. And I always thought that the thing with Wolves is they're not a selling club. They've got a billionaire owner. They've got ties to Jorge Mendes, the Portuguese agent, the super agent, you should say, who has helped them get several deals in place. So the likes of Jimenez, the likes of Moutinho, other players as well. So they're not a club that you think have to sell. They're also, they're a club that are doing quite well. They finished 7th in the Premier League. They're still in the Europa. We've seen the job that Nuno has done there, the manager. So you wouldn't expect them to have to sell because, like I said, they've got rich owners, they've got ties to a Portuguese super agent. But there's a story that's doing the rounds in the Portuguese press last night that Wolves are actually in for Sporting de Braga's Paulinho. They're willing to pay £27 million for him as a replacement for Jimenez, get that right, who could be coming to Old Trafford. The theory there is that Wolves are buying Paulinho because they're going to then sell us Jimenez. Now, would that happen? We'll have to wait and see. But the sources that are coming from Portugal, despite my initial scepticism, seem to be quite relatively reliable. So there may be something in that. It's one to certainly monitor. We know that he's a player that can do a job in the Premier League. He scored 17 Premier League goals this season. He scored 26 goals in all competitions for Wolves, which is a pretty phenomenal return. He's actually got more and more prolific as his career's gone on. If you look at his record when he was at Benfica, for example, he wasn't scoring nearly as many goals. He was regarded as a scorer of great goals rather than a great goal scorer. The goals he scored would be pretty often spectacular. He wouldn't be prolific. But he's added that to his game here in the Premier League, and scoring for 17 Premier League goals and 20-odd goals in all competitions is a fantastic return. Those are the sort of numbers we're getting from Marcus Rashford, from Anthony Martial. So, I don't know, maybe if that deal could happen, I don't think anyone would be complaining about it. Now, people have looked at it and gone, well, Jimenez is 29 years old. Do we want to be buying 29-year-olds? I think he turned 29 in May. But it kind of makes sense to me, because if you are going to bring in a striker, you want someone who can do a job in the Premier League, as we know that he can. You want someone that isn't going to stifle the progress of the likes of Martial, maybe to a lesser degree Marcus Rashford and Mason Greenwood. But if someone who's coming in with that experience, who probably is going to be on a sort of 3 or 4 year deal but isn't going to be in the first team all the time, then it kind of makes sense that you can have that experience, someone who can come in, someone who, when you can rotate, is happy to do that. And as I said, won't stop the likes of Mason Greenwood progressing in the years to come, because he's only going to be here for a few years. So I'd keep an eye on that one. There may be something in it. It's one that may rumble on, as most transfers do. But if Paulinho goes to Wolves, then that may increase the speculation on whether United are going to sign Jimenez, because, as I've said earlier, he's a good player. United could do with other options up front. We know that Jadon Sancho isn't an out-and-out striker. He isn't a number 9, so there's possibilities there. He's not a number 9 in a sort of classic sense, Sancho, where you'd always play him down the middle, although he can play down the middle. The likelihood is, even when Sancho comes, which is looking more likely day by day, he'll slot into that right-hand side position. So you'd have Sancho, Martial and Marcus Rashford with Greenwood rotating. So there's still scope for someone like Jimenez, because let's face facts, Manchester United teams, they've always been built on having options, of having different players being able to come in and go out. It's not just about one player. It's not just about having sort of a set strike force and that's it. You look back to the great Manchester United teams. 99, of course, you had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you had Teddy Sheringham. You go back to 2000 and even when you look at 2007, 2008, those great teams, you had the likes of Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez. You also had other players that were trying to sort of get into that team as well, other players that could come in, could do a job for 1 or 2 games. You know, Ji-sung Park used to play off the front sometimes, for example. So you need options. United are obviously looking at that. They're looking at the likes of Sancho and maybe Jimenez. Will both those deals happen? Who knows? But if they're paying 60 million initial fee for Jadon Sancho, then that does increase the likelihood that you can bring in somebody like Raul Jimenez, who shouldn't be too expensive. As I said, he is 29 years old. If you're going to pay a similar fee to what Wolves are paying for Paulinho, if it is going to be around 27 million, then there's a possibility there that could happen, that you could make both deals. There could be a double swoop on the cards for Manchester United. Bringing in 2 top quality players would be a good transfer window so far, but we know that United should still be in the market for at least one other player. We spoke to James Cooper on the Tier 1 podcast earlier this week. He said that he expects United to make 3 signings this summer. One of them is pretty much nailed on, that it looks like it's going to be Jadon Sancho. Now, another one could be Jimenez. We know that Jack Grealish has been on United's radar. The talk there has cooled a little bit. There's a theory that going around that it might be difficult to get both Sancho and Grealish. Now, I don't understand that personally, because I think Sancho's always been a target and there's always been interest in Grealish. So United must have expected that they were going to have to pay big fees for both those players. So why it's one or the other baffles me slightly. But the interest that we're hearing on Grealish has cooled slightly. That maybe it's the fact that Aston Villa don't feel the need to sell him because they've stayed in the Premier League. They haven't been relegated. That obviously means they're now in a position where they're not forced. They're not forced where Grealish is saying, listen, I want Premier League football. I'm not going to play in the Championship again. So we'll see how that one pans out. Again, it's lots of ifs and buts and maybes. But Jack Grealish is one that's cooled, whilst Jadon Sancho and now Raul Jimenez are looking more and more likely. Now, another story that was doing the rounds this morning is that Dortmund are actually lining up an old United player, an ex-United player, Memphis Depay, as a replacement for Jadon Sancho. They've been looking at Depay. Now, we know that Dortmund have already signed Jude Bellingham. They've also been linked with a load of other players, but now they've been linked with Memphis Depay, who's obviously at Lyon. There's talk that he could be going over to Germany as a replacement for Jadon Sancho. He's still only 26, Memphis Depay, which sort of amazes me, because it seems like years ago that he was here. It wasn't that long ago, though, and he has been, he's been around from a very young age and doing scoring lots of goals and doing lots of good stuff from a very young age. He's been quite an effective player. Well, I use the term lightly, a lower level. He was fantastic at PSV. He's done really well at Lyon. It didn't quite work for him here at Old Trafford. I felt a little bit sorry for him. He had a great start to his Old Trafford career. I think the first month he was player of the season. He scored some goals in the Champions League, and everyone thought, this is it, in the Champions League qualifier, this is great. We've got a real star in our hand. He's obviously handed the number 7 shirt, but it just didn't work out. He never really settled. There was a lot of pressure on him, and some of his performances towards the end of his United career were, if I'm being brutally honest, they were pretty woeful. So maybe that's a good fit for him going to Dortmund. We know that he's the type of player that they like to use. He could fit in well there as a replacement for Jadon Sancho. So that'd be one to keep your eye on, whether Memphis Depay does go there as a replacement for Jadon Sancho, who looks like he could be coming to Old Trafford. As I said earlier, looks like an initial fee of £60 million has been agreed. That's what's being reported. And in the other news, I mentioned earlier that Raul Jimenez could be coming to Old Trafford as well. So that's 2 deals that could be on the horizon. We expect another deal as well. We were told 3 transfer signings this summer for Manchester United. We know there's loads of players that could be going out. We spoke about that. There's not been many reports on the players that could be going out this morning. It's sort of same old with the likes of, we know they are, Alexis Sanchez going to Inter on a permanent deal, Chris Smalling, Marcus Rojo, talk of Diogo Dalot going to Barcelona. We know those stories are still doing the rounds. There haven't been any movement on them so far, but the ones to keep an eye on. So we will keep an eye on them. We'll keep you updated on social media. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We'll have you updated. We'll have articles, we'll have posts, we'll have all that stuff. We'll have videos as well, of course. We'll be previewing next week. We're looking towards the Europa League campaign when that starts. We'll also be having reviews and all the stuff you can expect. The watch along will be along when the football kicks off again, because it's not that big a break before we start having football again. So make sure you're keeping it tuned to Full Time Devils. We're here in Manchester. It's still sunny. Blue skies ahead. Hopefully Manchester United will have even more sunnier times when we sign Jadon Sancho and maybe Raul Jimenez. I've been Jay. This has been Stretford Paddock's Paper Talk. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.